When it comes to being a better listener, things like maintaining eye contact with the person or nodding your head as they speak are all crap. We don't have to pretend to pay attention to somebody if you're actually listening to them. And that's what we're going to talk about here in this video. 4 things that we can do to improve our listening skills and not just make the other person feel like they've been heard. Hey, my name is Radeep and I'm the founder of Frantically Speaking, and I love learning about effective communications and sharing those learnings with you so that you can level up your communications game as well. Okay, so let's get the obvious points out of the way. If you're trying to listen better, then we shouldn't be multitasking. Don't scroll over your phone while you're trying to listen to somebody. Don't think of what you're going to be saying next or what you're going to be responding with. When you're listening to somebody, give them your full attention and let them finish whatever it is that they're going to be speaking, and try and pay attention to not just their words, but also their body language so that you don't only know what they're speaking, but also what they might be feeling. Now, the reason that I say those points are pretty obvious is because I don't think they need any further explanation. So we're going to dive into 4 other points that I feel are a lot deeper that help us become one notch better than the average good listener. The very first point is that environment matters. If we're trying to have a good conversation with somebody and we really want to listen to them, we need to have our surroundings complement that conversation. I once had a colleague come up to me in office where she came up to me very frantically and started saying that, I really need to talk to you. I've been having this problem and that problem. And I realized that her situation was important, but it wasn't urgent. And at that time, I was in the middle of so many phone calls. There was so much noise around in the office that it wasn't the best environment to have a great conversation. So I simply told her, I'm sorry, if I may interrupt you for just 1 second, I really want to understand your points better and give you my undivided attention. There are just too many distractions here. But how about we connect in 2 hours in the conference room for as much time as you need so that you and I can have a more productive conversation on this. And by saying that, by being clear with my intention, with the time and place for where we could meet next, she knew that I was genuinely invested in what she had to say, but I wanted to continue this conversation at a better time and place. And that conversation genuinely turned out to be so much better because we could spend a lot more time addressing her concerns, and I had the ability to listen to her better so that I could provide as much value as possible. The next point is to get specific. Not having enough clarity is the root cause of miscommunication, and yet we so rarely address this point. When someone's trying to speak to us and they're confiding in us and they're telling us a bunch of things, it's important for us as good listeners to try and get as specific as possible. For example, if somebody is talking about how they hate their job and they're just ranting about that without giving an actual reason for it, it is our job as good listeners to actually probe them for those answers. So when we ask them, why do you hate your job? They might respond with, because my boss keeps yelling at me. And then we need to ask, why does that happen? Can you give me 1 or 2 examples so that I can be on the same page as you? And when we do that, when we probe deeper and get as specific as we can, 2 things happen. One is they actually feel like we are genuinely listening to them, which we are, because we're trying to get more clarity on whatever subject it is that they're speaking on. And secondly, a lot of times after they walk away from such a conversation, they might feel a lot more clear in their own heads, even if we didn't offer them a solution. This happens because if we take on the role of a friendly but suspicious listener, we tend to uncover certain truths which even they probably knew about themselves but just needed some help to get there. And by asking these questions and helping them untangle whatever it is that's muddled in their minds, they walk away with so much more value and clarity. The next point that helps us become better listeners is providing empathy to their vulnerability. What I mean by this is that sometimes people may tell us some things that they're probably embarrassed to tell others about. And at these times, it's important to not let our emotions throw out a natural reaction, but be more empathetic to whatever they're being vulnerable about so that we can have a better conversation with them. For example, if somebody comes up to you and confides in you that they've just cheated on their partner, the natural reaction would be either of shock, anger, upsetness, whatever it might be. It's important that we try and subdue that reaction and respond to them with a simple, go on. And when we do that, it makes the person feel like even though the rest of the world might be judging them on what they've done, I can confide in this person because he or she does not seem like they'll judge me. And this helps them to be a lot more open, honest, which eventually leads to better communication. And the last point, be a better listener, is to stop redundancies. If people are speaking to us and they go on a rant and they keep repeating the same thing again and again, at some point the conversation is not moving forward. And while we should ideally let the other person finish whatever it is that they might be saying, if this happens, if a loop takes place, it's important for us to stop those redundancies so that the conversation can move forward. For example, if a colleague is ranting about her boss and keeps on telling you that how her boss keeps on taking credit for all her work and just keeps repeating the same point again and again, at some point, you need to stop that person and say something like this. I'm sorry, if I may interrupt you for just 1 second. I completely heard you that she's taking credit for all your work, and we'll definitely discuss that further. But is there anything else that is bothering you in that regard? And after saying that, one of two things will happen. Either they'll say that no, that's the only thing that's bothering them about this particular problem, or they'll move on to different points which will help you diagnose the problem better. And all of this helps us be better communicators so that people want to have more conversations with us and feel comfortable to confide in us because we are good listeners. And that's about it. 4 things along with all the obvious stuff that helps us be better listeners. If you have any more questions around things like communications, public speaking, conversations, or anything in that space, we have an entire website with in-depth articles and resources dedicated just for that. So go check out franticallyspeaking.com.